Hi, you're watching Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media. All of our platforms on YouTube and iBlog Radio and Blog Talk and everything. I'm Mike here in San Antonio, Mike Morales. And that gentleman out there is?
I'm Eric Zandona in San Francisco, California.
Yep, Eric is one of our TJs, and Eric and I have had a chance to do a tasting or two of some really great tequilas that are based somewhere in Central California. And Eric, when this one came across our desk, I was really impressed because I guess the PR company reached out to us, and they're based in Napa, I think.
Yeah, so the brand ownership company is in Napa, California.
Yes.
So it's a team effort between two people, I guess, based here in California, and they were looking to make some interesting tequila, and so this is the product.
I am going to go on record now, Eric. I have to say I love this packaging, man. This is a substantial bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at if you see the A on the cap there. Look at how cool that is.
So that's interesting because I actually have the opposite opinion.
You don't like it? Tell me.
On the packaging. In part because so it's a cube, right? The bottle is a cube.
Right.
And so there's a couple of issues with that. One is
looks like cologne.
No, not that. It's just
aftershave.
For me, the bottle is pretty big. Like I think, decent sized hands.
Yeah.
But this is like a heavy bottle to hold.
Yes.
Like because all of the weight, I feel like, is kind of concentrated in this very dense package. And the bottle itself is substantial. It's not a cheap bottle, right? So they use good glassware. It's got a nice weight to it. But the shape of it, I think, makes it hard to pour. And then when you're trying to, like, grab the bottle, there's such a small neck. Like, pouring it and just the weight distribution is all off for me. I mean, I think just sitting on a shelf, the cube and the face looks clean.
Yes.
At the same time, it's a wide base. Takes up more space in my cabinet than any other bottle in terms of, square inches. And there's a lot of empty space now above it, so it feels like it's taking up a lot of room.
I got news for you. I have kettlebells that don't feel like this, man.
Yeah, once you're done drinking it, you got yourself a kettlebell.
That's it. So fill it with water and,
right.
it around.
There you go. So I do think it's a nice looking package, but there's some functionality issues for me. And just in terms of like how you have to hold on to it. There's nothing elegant about the way you got to grip onto this thing in order to pour yourself a glass.
Yeah, you have to, and you'll notice this when you get to Oaxaca, hopefully, and you make your way to other parts of Mexico. But it's interesting that when you go to Mexico, when it doesn't matter what the bottle is, when you're served, when you're at a restaurant or whatever, they'll serve it like a wine. They'll hold it from the bottom and serve it that way. Whereas in America, if you're in a bar, and especially if you're behind the stick, you're going to grab by the neck, pop it open, and pour like this.
Yeah.
So there's nothing elegant about ordering, depending on where this tequila will be. Now, from all indications, this is going to be a luxury tequila, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, on the shelf, it's going to look beautiful. It does look like a bottle of cologne, and we'll go through a lot of the other stuff, but this isn't cheap, and it's fairly heavy, and I can tell you that I'm getting a good shoulder workout just holding it, man. Now, what I like the cap though. This is a really interesting cap. I think it's some sort of synthetic cork.
Yeah, so it's a glass closure with with a some sort of rubber gasket that helps it seal.
Yeah.
And I've seen these for a few different brands every once in a while, and they're interesting. You don't have the nice thing with these is you don't end up with the issue where, like just last night, I was opening up an old bottle that I've had in my cabinet for a while,
Hmm.
and it had a natural cork closure with a plastic top, and the cork and the top broke off from each other because the cork was dry because it had been sitting in the
Yep.
cabinet for a while, and so you don't have that issue with that.
No, no, you don't. And obviously, there's no spillage either. I mean,
Right.
it's there's some pluses and minuses where just the packaging is concerned. But I wanted to get a little bit more into some of the details.
Hmm.
The POS that was sent to us by the folks here at Savage,
Hmm.
Savage and
Cook
Savage and Cook,
or
and
Coke.
well,
Yeah.
I think it's
Probably.
Cook. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, this is a collaboration between the Ramirez family. Now, the Gnome, just so you guys know, the Gnome is 1519.
Yeah.
There are three tequilas that come out of that distillery. One is De Leon. I'm not sure if that's going to continue the way it's been. Diageo, at this point, if you're watching this, Diageo has just purchased Casamigos, and so I'm not sure what Diageo is planning on doing with all their tequilas that they have in their stable. But
Yeah.
right now, De Leon is still technically being made there. One of my favorites from this year's Desmadre is also being made there, and these guys,
Okay.
this
Hmm.
brand has been doing gangbusters all over California,
Okay.
and and Ayate, and that's it. That's all that's coming out of there.
Okay.
Let me ask you, uh, do you know who Dave Finney is? I know that supposedly he's a winemaker, apparently a fairly well-known winemaker, but to us here in the spirits industry, I don't think I've ever heard of him.
Yeah, no, the name wasn't immediately recognizable to me, though that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. I don't know the wine industry quite as well. So
Yeah,
e-
well,
even in California, because we have like, I don't know, something crazy like 5,000 wineries in California. So
yeah.
it's,
Yeah, and well, especially in your neck of the woods,
yeah,
they're either Napa, Sonoma, and all points in between and around.
yeah.
Um, but the interesting thing about this, and as we taste it, we'll go through some of the points. One of the interesting things about this, and what makes it really unusual, is that, um, and it's in particular with the añejo, but with the reposado, there's a series of barrels that it is being aged in.
Yeah.
The
And that's one of the most interesting things I think about this brand is the maturation scheme that they've come up with.
Now, according to the POS, the point of sale material, the barrel aging on the reposado is 8 months of aging, including 4 months in new American oak barrels. So this is new, being, we'll just assume virgin, okay?
Yeah.
Followed by 4 months in Chardonnay barrels, and I'm assuming these are Chardonnay barrels from Dave Finney's collection in
Right.
Napa.
Right.
Now, the only other tequila that I know that is being finished in Napa Valley barrels is this one. Bear with me here.
Mm-hmm.
It's Dulce Vida, and this
Uh-huh.
is in their 5 year. You'll see
Yeah.
it right there. It's Barricas de Napa Valley, and I think my information that I had was
Oh yeah.
Sauterne barrels, and that, if you, for those of you who have had this, you know that being polished or finished in a barrel like that will give a tequila a really unusual flavor profile. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this tequila, this iteration, is at barrel strength, so it's at 55 proof,
Oh yeah.
starting at 100 proof, of course, with the tequila itself. That's this version of Dulce Vida. So
Mm-hmm.
I was really interested to taste this one.
Yeah.
Do you have any glassware there with you? Because
I do. I'm using my trusty Glencairn.
terrific. There's two things that I want to share with everybody. Number one, I'm going to be using this is a prototype, the brand new iteration prototype coming from Stossel.
Oh, nice.
It is in the experimental stage right now, and you can see it's got almost the same thickness or thinness as a Glencairn.
Yeah.
But it is more historically accurate. We call it the Jarrito project. And we're testing it. Okay, we're testing it out.
Great.
We're working with a really great guy, Chisholm Trail Glassware in Austin, and he was nice enough to send these to us. And this is the tequila version. It's got a much larger chimney longer chimney than the mezcal version. So, and I've never used this. I just got this last week, so I haven't used this version yet.
Nice.
So here we go, man. Look at.
All right.
Just don't spill anything on your computer.
Yeah.
I knew I should have gotten a napkin.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's a cologne.
Yeah.
Now I'm not using a whole lot. You can see I'm
Yeah.
not using a whole lot. I'm swirling it around like this. And you know we've talked a lot about the Glencairns. I love these glasses for what they are. I think that they've been perfect for our purposes here at Tequila Aficionado.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it has a really nice nose.
Yes.
One of the things that I get, there's some obvious notes of alcohol there, which is interesting, being that it's 40%. But under that is some really nice notes of some green agave, caramel, a little bit black pepper, real faint hint of maybe like vanilla. It's really, really pleasant. And once it sits for a little bit and that alcohol kind of volatilizes, you get some of the more pleasant aromas. I
have to say, Eric, that I was really very impressed with the nose on this tequila. And to be fair, I have used this glass. That's a Glencairn Copita glass.
Yeah.
This was the initial glass that I used to taste this tequila on my own before we came on camera, and I was impressed by the nose because it was so deep and rich. I hadn't even honestly I hadn't at that time read even the POS material. I try not to do that so I'm not influenced by what I had read. And I gotta say, I was so impressed with the nose on this Reposado. And again, it goes, I think just in the nose, what we were talking about last time when you and I got together, we were talking about how brands are making a statement with their Reposados.
Yeah.
I think this falls right in line with that. And that's just without tasting it yet.
Yeah. There's an interesting kind of lightness to it. And I don't know exactly, because they're not the sort of standard that we've seen for aged tequilas is used whiskey barrels. You usually use bourbon barrels, and so you get some residual character of some of that bourbon or whatever, but there's a different character here than you would get in a kind of your traditional Reposado, in part because of the oak they're using, new oak for 4 months, and then used Chardonnay barrels. So there's an interesting, it's different, that's for sure.
Yes, it is.
And it adds some complexity, I think, to the nose.
Like I say, I'm really enjoying the nose on this, but let's see what it tastes like, because this is where it was interesting for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. I I I hesitate because you've been around a lot of the whiskeys and the darker spirits for a long time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's and I think that's why I decided that when they reached out to us, that number one, of course, location wise, it was just easier to get stuff to you. But number two,
Yeah.
this would be right up your alley.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I the richness of this reposado is outstanding in my opinion.
Yeah. So it has some really great flavors going on. But here again, I would say the alcohol really comes through
Yes.
as well. And at 40%, I don't know. Like I didn't have, I wasn't able to find out what sort of still the Ramirez family is running on, if they're using a column or if they're using pot stills or.
The information we have is that they're using handmade traditional copper pot stills.
Oh, okay. I missed that. Yeah. Yeah, pot stills. So I think it's interesting. The flavor, again, just like the nose, has real depth to it and complexity. There's lots of interesting things going on. I get a little bit of smoke, some roasted agave notes, um, and some light, really light tannins from the oak, not
Yes.
overly bitter or harsh. A little bit of spice, sort of like cinnamon almost, or and then like red pepper. It's really kind of
Maybe
it's
cinnamon, yes. The cinnamon
yeah,
and it's like right at mid palate when it just gets to you, and it's got a really decent finish also. It's got a medium to long finish.
yeah.
And now, is it just me, or is this a little bit dry on the finish also?
I
I
to me
noticed some dryness, and I thought
hmm
that it was from the Napa Valley barrels, from the Chardonnay
yeah,
barrels.
Chardonnay. To me, the finish I would call this maybe like semi-dry. It's not it's not like bone dry like you would get with some you know whiskeys that have been sitting for a long time.
Or a
There's
cognac for that matter.
yeah, or cognac. There's a little bit of residual sweetness there, and I think that's probably due from some of the natural sugars they were able to extract from the toasted barrel,
Hmm.
from the wine barrel. So it's got a really nice mouthfeel to it. It's really smooth and viscous. So going in, it's really pleasant. All that flavor
Hmm.
you get on the palate, and the finish is nice too. You get that cinnamon note again, and um, yeah, it's nice. There's a little bit of dryness from the tannins, but I think it's mellowed out with the sweetness wherever that's coming from. I'm not sure.
The reason I bring it up, and again, when I had this,
Hmm.
I didn't read the POS.
Yeah.
I knew a little bit about it just from the initial emails that we had gotten, and I said, okay, this reminds me of, again, Dulce Vida, and the reason the finish and the dryness reminds me of this is because at Dulce Vida, this is at barrel strength,
Yeah.
and it is, if you're not careful, it's, to me it's an acquired taste. It's beautifully done. It's 5 years, but you have to be ready for the barrel strength. It's at a much higher alcohol content,
Hmm.
and of course different barrels. But the dryness that I remember from this was reminded to me from this one,
Yeah.
and but this one is at more of an 80 proof. This is an 80 proof. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh, so this is what this is, toned down.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, as the average oak head, I think and I'm average because I lean toward more of the blancos myself. But I think as an average oak head, I preferred this iteration at 80 proof than this one at 100 proof, where I had to really brace myself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is got a real dry finish. This
Mm-hmm.
one has a nice, pleasant finish. And
Yeah.
I also have to say, Eric, there are añejos out there that don't have this kind of structure to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that we had issues, or you had issues with the packaging, but would you consider this a brand of promise nominee at least?
You
Do you,
know,
do you think it's worthy?
well, so this is a question that lingers in my mind in terms of I think the tequila itself is really quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
The price point for it, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it because so this is retails for $65. So
Really?
this is
Okay.
so this is an expensive reposado,
Mm-hmm.
and the quality I would say in terms of the tequila is there. There are some what I would consider maybe some minor flaws in terms of the kind of presence of the heat from the alcohol
Mm-hmm.
on the nose and on the mouth. Um, but I still think it's a really not. It's got some great flavors. Always my kind of thought goes to for what I'm tasting, do I want to pay that? And so anyway, that's always what I think. I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of how much, retail, where they're aiming this product in the market. Does that affect your thoughts apart from the quality of the tequila in the bottle?
Honestly, I know that everybody has a glass ceiling when it comes
Yeah.
to when it comes to price point. And I had it years ago. Uh, some of you folks who are watching us may have it. Will the average guy spend $65 for a reposado? Here's what you have to take into consideration. Number one, you're not going to slug this. Okay,
No, that's for sure.
obviously for the price point.
Yeah.
Number two, you have a very small distillery with only three brands coming out of it,
Mhm.
so you can't even really call it a maquiladora.
Mhm.
It doesn't even have 8 or 9 or 10 brands,
Right.
which would consider it a small to mid-size. This is a small distillery, and other people have recognized the quality coming out of it. You also take into consideration that distillation is in a copper pot. The aging is interesting. I think
Yeah.
there's a sales there's a sales point there. If
Yeah,
you
yeah.
like stuff, if you like this at 100 proof, you might want to try this one at half
Mhm.
that price
Yeah.
and being at 80 proof. Again, I know it's apples and oranges, and literally it's grapes and grapes, but it's Chardonnay and Sauterne. But
Right.
if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm not
Yeah,
a wine
so-
guy, but so you take a lot of factors into consideration, and I would say for anybody adventuresome that enjoyed that version of
Yeah.
Dulce Vida may want to consider this. And in my opinion, it's just my opinion, that I think the quality of the reposado versus some of the añejos that you and I have had in the past, this reposado stands up really surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Their water, if you're a big water buff like some of us are tequila geeks,
Yeah.
their agave comes from 7,000 feet high. Their water is pristine, pure water that does not undergo filtration.
hmm
So,
I think that might actually lend to the viscous mouthfeel that you get
yes.
with some of the extra minerality that you get in unfiltered probably spring water. It'll probably contribute to that full mouthfeel
I
that we're
believe
getting.
I believe you are correct. We
Yeah. If they
having
were using reverse osmosis water that's like super clean and no minerals, and then you're probably more likely to have a much drier, thinner mouth feel.
this is a hearty reposado. So
Yeah.
I think when you take all those factors into consideration, I think they would be doing themselves a favor by probably working on their packaging and finding maybe a less expensive. I'll give you, for instance, I don't know if you've ever seen it or have ever had it, but there's one called Blue Nectar Tequila, which we did a review of a long time ago, Alex and myself. We love the packaging. It's about half the size. It still looks like a cologne bottle and doesn't weigh as much. And it's still great for, it's a 750.
Yeah.
But, they may want to consider another, just to make it maybe a more cost effective, if that is an issue for them.
Right, yeah.
If not, then we know that they're going after the luxury market, because obviously the luxury segment of the market is what's growing tequila by leaps and bounds. I think they have something here.
Yeah.
I think they have something here at a much more approachable, palatable version versus the 100 proof in a wine barrel. Again, not that this is bad. We loved it. But you got to brace yourself for this. And I think maybe the taking the two of those things into consideration, I think if you don't want to jump into the 100 proof, this is a good halfway mark.
Yeah. So neat, I would say this is how the Reposado shines, either neat or with a little bit of like water or a small ice cube. In the point of sale material, they had mentioned that you could drink it neat or you could use it in a cocktail. And so I tried my standard margarita version of it, and it was interesting because the Reposado, it gave the margarita a really nice body to it, but the tequila flavor itself really kind of disappeared in the margarita. You tasted the lime and the orange liqueur, but the tequila itself kind of disappeared. So really, this is at the price point and the bottle and all that, like this is a sipping tequila. I don't know that you're going to really get much out of it using it in a cocktail. In part, I think maybe that's because of the 40% alcohol. When you start adding layers of, a little bit of ice and a little bit of lemon and a little bit of orange liqueur, like it just kind of like fades away. Maybe that's what's going on. But this is really, if you're going to drink it, you want it neat, maybe with just a little bit of water, a few drops to like let it open up some of the aromas and flavors. But otherwise, just as is how you're going to want it.
See, I'll buy that. I'll buy those recommendations. That makes more sense to me. I didn't get as much alcohol out of these iterations that the way you did. I have a theory about alcohol. I mean, I live in Texas.
Right.
I do. I live in Texas, and when I got these delivered to me, they were hot. And I think people, it was. I remember I told you we've had days of 100 degrees out here, and that's at like 80-90% humidity. So I'm sticking to everything, folks. But when we get deliveries in the summertime, I know better. I let it sit at air-conditioned room temp, which is about set at anywhere between 78 and 80. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I drink it the next day. So if you make the mistake of keeping this in your trunk, and then pulling it out when it's still warm, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
But I didn't get as much alcohol. I got helpful alcohol, which is what. The alcohol, to me, after having spoken to guys like Germán González, alcohol is a necessity. It's a necessary, not an evil, but it is a way for the aromas to come up to you.
Right, it's like an agent that carries them up. And there's a certain amount that you need in order to be able to smell those, volatile aromas. That get them into your nose and to make sense of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think eliminating that, you're doing yourself a disservice, first of all, and you're not getting the full effect that the distiller had planned for.
Right.
I think our bottom line is we agree to disagree on the packaging.
Yeah.
because you have some valid points.
Yeah.
I think for price point, we also disagree. But that's a glass ceiling.
Right.
Um,
But for the quality, I think is still really high.
I do
So that
too.
yeah. So
I
I
do too.
agree. Um, I think for the luxury tequila segment, I would say this is a good buy for that. So if you're looking for, this is not a, cheap reposado that you can use, either neat or in a cocktail or what, this is a high-end sipping reposado that's really nice. If you give it time to breathe and to open up, you're really going to enjoy some of the really interesting flavors that are coming through in part because of the unique maturation.
I think so. I totally agree. I buy every recommendation. I think this is a Brand of Promise nominee.
Mhm.
Um, that's our take on Ayate Reposado. If you stick with us, we're going to attack the Añejo iteration, and that's going to be interesting too because we've got some background information that we'd like to share with you.
Mhm.
Stick with us if you're watching us on YouTube. Please subscribe down below. If you're listening to us on iTunes, subscribe there too. I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there again is.
I'm Eric Zandona in San Francisco.
That's you can find him at easydrinking.com.
That's right.
Easy, get that? See what he did there? Easy.
Yeah.
Uh, and again, stay with us. We're going to be attacking the añejo version. But whatever you do here at Tequila Aficionado, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.